Hey everybody, welcome back to Mixing Music Analog and mixingmusicanalog.com, and here on the YouTube channel, this is part 3 of our 4-part video series where we are comparing the sound of the conversion or the converters of the Presonus Quantum 4848 in the Dangerous Music Convert AD Plus converter box. If you missed parts 1 and 2, make sure you go check the link in the description box below and you can check those out. Today in part 3, we're going to take a little field trip together, like a school trip. We're heading out to upstate New York to talk to our good buddy David S.J. in his home studio. He is doing our deep dive analysis of these 3 print tracks that we've provided in parts 1 and part 2. He's going to look at these things from an analytical point of view, with some scopes and EQ curves and analyzers, and do null tests and phase alignment and all of that stuff, so we could get more of a visual representation and a more quantifiable measurement of the differences between these 2 print tracks, the one coming out of the Presonus and the one coming out of the Dangerous Music. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, and join me now for David S.J. over at his studio to take a look at these tracks in a little bit of a more detailed way.
Hey guys, as you can see by the clock in the lower right hand corner, it's pretty early on a Sunday morning. This is the day after me and David spent a few hours in the studio running an experiment with the Dangerous Music AD Plus digital to analog converter. Any of you guys have been around the channel for any length of time know that we can't do a live stream without discussing converters. Somebody always brings the quality of the converters up in the chat. So we always end up talking about converters. And we've been getting a lot of discussion in the chats lately about the quality of the converters on the print track. That if we upgraded the converters to a high quality converter, there would be a big difference in the quality of the print tracks and so forth. So after hearing these comments for quite a while now, David finally made the decision and he went to Sweetwater and he bought the Dangerous Music AD Plus digital to analog, analog to digital converter. The stereo digital converter, it has an added feature of a transformer circuit that can be switched in and out. And the unit itself is about $3,000 as opposed to a Presonus 4848 that we got when they were still available for what, $1,500, okay? So by inference alone, you would expect the quality level of what's coming out of the Dangerous Music converters to be better than the audio quality coming out of the Presonus 4848. That's been what's been discussed over and over again in chats and live streams. So yesterday, I went to the studio, we spent the morning in there, and we ran an experiment. David did a mix of a Barry Dridger song called Bad For You, and if it hasn't been said enough on this channel, I'm going to say it again now. We really appreciate Barry for giving us access to his music. No charge, no catches, no strings attached. We can take his multi-tracks and use them any way we want. So if you guys appreciate what we're doing on this channel, do us a favor and go down in there, follow the links to Barry's music and show Barry some love as well, because his generosity is making it possible for us to do things like this. So please do that for us, okay? So what we did yesterday was we took a Barry Dridger song and David did a full mix on the board. It's a full mix. All the channels on the board are being used. EQ, panning on the board, inserts on a lot of the channels, like the, LA2 on the, I don't think it's an LA2A on the bass, but, like there's compressors on the drums, there's compressors on the bass, the guitars are being run through a dione, the vocals are being run through 1176s, and then the whole mix coming out is being run through David's normal master bus chain of the Empress EQ, the Portico 542 tape emulators, the SPL Big stereo widener, and the SSL bus compressor are all being used on this. So there's a lot of processing going on this track as well. So what we did yesterday was we did a print through the 4848s as usual. And then after we did the print on the 4848s, We disconnected the DB25 connector that sends the audio out to the 4848 for printing. We plugged in another DB25 cable and ran that to the dangerous audio. Okay, dangerous audio is plugged into the back of the computer with a USB cable, and then I crawled behind the command and control console and plugged in the clock cable as well. So we printed through the dangerous audio without the transformer, with their clock, and then we ran a third pass through the dangerous audio with the transformer engaged as well. So there's 3 total prints, and these are available to you guys. Links in the description below that you can download these print tracks yourself, and you can do anything you want to experiment with them as well. So we did a video yesterday where we just played it blank for everybody to look at. And then we did a follow-up video that you probably have already seen as well, where we went into a little bit deeper. We revealed which one is which, and we talked about our impressions and got a little bit more analytical about it. Now, today, I have those same 3 print tracks that you can download. These are the same tracks that you can download. They came down off of the Mira site that David's using. They're the same tracks you download. And I've got a session set up now, and I'm going to go through them a little more analytically. We're going to put some scopes on it. We're going to use some things to compare, contrast. We're going to check phase correlation. We're going to do everything we can, okay, to look at these tracks. Probably going to do a null test as well on them. Okay, so I'm just going to get into this now. I'm going to start this out just by repeating the playthrough from the blind playthrough from yesterday. Now, I know what these tracks are, and if you've seen the second video, you know what the tracks are. But if anybody hasn't seen it, I'm going to run through it once and play through them, and then so that you can hear the difference between the 3 without knowing which one is which. So hang on one second. Let me make one change, and then we're going to get started. Okay, so now we're back in. All right, so this is the Reaper session that I have set up for this whole experiment, okay? As you can see, the 3 print tracks are in here, the same as you guys have. I color-coded them. Print track number 1, green. Print track number 2, blue. Print track number 3, red, okay? One of these print tracks is the Presonus 4848. One of these print tracks is the dangerous music without the transformer. One of these print tracks is the dangerous music with the transformer. There are no plugins on this session. This is straight to the master bus. The only plugin being used is my Restream plugin that is sending the audio out of the DAW into OBS for the sake of this recording. That has no effect on anything. It's just sending the audio out, okay? The only thing I've done to these tracks is that I did normalize all 3 of them to -10 peak, okay? So that they are all at exactly the same volume. They're all going to, the highest peak in each one is going to be at -10. So that volume-wise, they should be completely identical. That's the only processing I've done to anything, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to get some headphones on so we don't bleed into the microphone. I'm going to repeat what we did in the first video yesterday. This is just going to be a blind playthrough of all 3 tracks for you guys to listen through. If you have not seen this yet already, this is just a way for you guys to get an idea blindly of what the actual audio differences between these 3 tracks are. So if you've already seen this and you don't want to sit through this again, I will throw a time code up on the screen now for you to jump ahead and skip over this part. But if you haven't, or if you need to hear it again, I think it would be beneficial to hear them through again completely dry before we get into anything else, okay? So I'm going to be soloing each track in turn. That's track 1, that's track 2, that's track 3. Okay, so we're going to play through all of them starting on track 1, and I'm going to switch between each track about once every measure. So it's going to be pretty fast jumping between the tracks. Okay, your job at this point is to just listen to them and see if you can hear a difference between them. Make notes for what the differences that you hear between them are. Try to guess which one is which if you're into that. Okay, so I'm just going to be quiet now, and I'm just going to play through all three of them blindly, and then we'll get into a little bit deeper. Okay, everybody ready? Here we go.
So use your fingers at any time, yeah. When you move me, I can shake it. There's something going on, and I can take it. I've been a shy boy, I try to do what's good, but when you are mine, I don't do what I should. I got it bad for you, I got it bad for you, I got it bad for you, yeah. I got it bad for you, I got it bad for you, I got it bad for you. I'm a man that tried it, never letting go. When I see you walk, I'm losing all control. I'm losing all control. So come on, woman, I'm gonna do it right, and I'll do it if it takes all night. I got it bad for you, I got it bad for you, I got it bad for you, yeah. I got it bad for you, I got it bad for you, I got it bad for you. I've been around the block, I missed some time. The way you look at me, you're looking so fine. What can I say to move this thing along? So take a chance on me, you can't go wrong, yeah. I got your number, and you got mine. So use your fingers, not anytime, yeah. I got it bad for you. I got it bad for you. I got it bad for you. I got it bad for you.
Okay, so having played through all three tracks, if you've taken the time to listen through it and try to figure out which one it is, I'm now going to reveal which one is which. Print track number 1 is the AD plus without the transformer. Print number 2 is the 4848. Okay. Whoops. We'll do it this way then. 4848. And then print number 3 is the AD plus with the converter. Okay. So these are the three. Those are the three run throughs that we printed out yesterday. Now, in the interest of complete, analytical, whatever you want to call this, there was a time gap between each print. Okay. We printed with the 4848 first, then we took the time to unplug, replug, run some stuff, And then we had to like check a few connections and stuff. So there, I don't know, it might have been 15, 20 minutes after we printed the first one that we printed the second one. Okay. And then there was another delay when we printed the third one, not as long, maybe 5 minutes. But so there was a time delay between each one. Now, 2 factors to keep in mind. This was a completely analog mix. The only thing that was going on that was digital was the tracks coming out of the DAW, going into the board. We're going through a digital to analog converter, each one. And then the entire chain was analog. And then back into the DAW for printing through an analog to digital converter. All of those analog pieces of gear, and there were a lot of them, have tolerances that change over time, and temperature and everything else has effects on them. No 2 passes through analog gear are going to be 100% identical. Period. They're just not going to be. Secondly, they're affected by all kinds of things, like the 15-minute delay, temperatures may have changed, whatever. Things are going to be slightly different. So that's going to account for some very, very slight differences between the 3 mixes. Any other audible difference is down to the actual units themselves. Okay? So that's the one thing you got to remember. Now, another thing to keep in mind too is that the 4848 does not have a converter. So print track 1 and print track 2 are the 2 that we're going to concentrate on for the rest of this analysis. The converters do have an obvious but subtle effect on the mix, you know, on the sound of what you're printing. But to keep it even, only the first 2 mixes are really the ones that we're going to concentrate on for the rest of this analysis, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to set up a couple of things. I'm going to, well, first of all, I'm just going to mute out track number 3 for now. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to compare tracks 1 and 2. We're going to compare the 80 plus without the converter, and we're going to come to the 4848. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to add Plugin Alliance's adapter metric AB to the master bus. Okay, and I'm going to put that in front of the restream so you can hear it. Okay, and to that, I'm going to load one of the files. I think I'm going to load print number 1. That's the AD plus into the adapter metric. Okay, so that means I'm going to mute out that track over here. So the only track that we're going to be listening to out of the DAW is the 4848, and then we're going to be using adapter metric to compare and contrast those 2. So let me just get playing that a little bit and do a little bit of setup in here. We're going to match loudnesses. Okay. And then I'm going to sync these up. Where is sync? So we'll go into here.
I got your number, hey, you got mine.
Okay, so they are matched. So that's the 4848 when that's blue, and that's the AD plus when it's orange. Okay. So we got them synced. And we're going to look at the spectrum first. We're going to dual them. So that's, again, the blue is the 4848, and the orange is the AD plus. And if we layer them together in adapter metric, layer them, you can see the differences between the 2 tracks. Okay. We can check the correlation to see if they're in phase with each other, and they're pretty close. You can look at stereo image to see the width. Again, they're layered together. And stereo image on them, pretty much the same. Your spectrum, you can see the blue line, the orange on the orange. If I go dual again, you see that that's at 43. That's roughly the same. mean, there are some tonal differences between them, but they're not huge. Okay? Well, if you switch back and forth to them, the blue to the orange, and then this line here is the sum of the two. Okay? And again, the blue and the orange are right on top of each other through most of this. There's very little tonal difference, spectrum-wise, between the two mixes. Okay? I mean, they are incredibly similar to each other. Okay? So, just out of curiosity, no. I was going to think about maybe comparing it to the one with the converter, but I'm going to let that go for now. I'm just looking at these two. So as you can see, I mean, there's just not a lot of difference there at all. Dynamic range. Not a lot. So you're not getting any extra dynamics from one to the other. Loop that so it plays again. Okay, so like I say, as you can see, with the dynamic range is pretty much similar all the way through. Spectrum analysis shows that they're pretty similar all the way through. Correlation, phase issues, they're pretty similar. I mean, those tracks are not aligned perfectly. We're going to put auto align on them in a minute and do this again. But yeah, those tracks are not perfectly aligned. So actually, let's do that now. Let me close that down for a minute. Let me close that down for a minute. Let me open these both up. I'm going to put auto align. Hang on. I have a lot of plugins, as you can see. I'm going to put auto align on those two tracks. I'm going to send off of track 1. That's the AD plus. And I'm going to receive on the 4848 track. Okay. So I'm also going to pull the volume down on both of those a little bit so that the sum doesn't get too loud. I'm going to pull them down about 6 dB. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to pull them down about 6 dB so that when I'm listening to the sum of them, it doesn't get too loud. Okay. So here is the auto align send on 80 plus. Here is the auto line receive on the 4848. And I'm going to detect.
I got your number, hey, you got mine. So use your fingers.
224 samples is how much it was moved to align them, okay? So now I'm going to restore these back to 0. I'm going to mute this one back out. Okay? And we're going to open up adapter metric again. And we're going to run the test again. Okay? So here we go again. Let's look at the correlation now that they're phase aligned. And as you can see, there's almost no difference in the phase. Okay, so the phase alignment's a lot better. Spectrum analysis is pretty much dead on.
So use your fingers.
Stereo image, pretty much dead on. Dynamics are right on top of each other. But with those being phase aligned, the differences that were showing up in it before are almost completely removed. Let me just do a quick loud mismatch again. See if it changes at all. Nope, it's still at -5.2. So So from a strictly scientific point of view, there's virtually no difference between those two tracks. So the tracks that were printed in through the 4848 and the tracks that were printed through the AD Plus, from an analysis point of view, are almost exactly the same. So now we're going to do the big one, okay? Let me add decibel to my master bus now. Now decibel is going to take up a lot of the screen. Oh, look, there's a new one. We'll update it later, okay? And I'm also going to add the Voxengo's correlometer, okay? And the reason I'm going to add Voxengo's correlometer is because it's a multi-band correlation meter. There's 32 bands of correlation examination here, okay? So again, we're going to put them above here just in case there's any effect on anything, okay? So it's already been auto-aligned. So if I flip the phase on one of these two tracks at the same volume level, okay, and again, because I'm playing these together, I'm going to bring the volume level down about 3 or 4 dB for this test. Okay. I'm going to bring the volume level. Where is that? Oh, that's. We'll go right about there. Okay, so that's about 4 dB down. So for this part of the test, those two tracks are auto-aligned. They're both going to be playing on top of each other. And we're going to flip the phase on one of the two tracks and do a null test. Now, as usual, I know I've explained null test before, but if anybody doesn't understand what a null test is, two tracks that are perfectly in line, each peak goes up at the same time, each peak goes down at the same time. If you flip the phase on one track so that the peaks on that track are going down when the peaks on the other one are going up, if those peaks are traveling up and down at exactly the same rate, if they're exactly the same, if you flip the phase, they will null each other out and you will hear nothing. Okay? If those peaks are doing different things, if there's differences between them, they will not null. Okay? So when you're listening to a null test, what you want to listen for is what can you hear and what can't you hear. Okay? If you can hear it, it's not nulling, so there's differences between the two tracks. If you cannot hear it, they are nulling, and those tracks are completely identical. Okay? So we're going to run a null test on tracks 1 and 2, the AD Plus without the converter and the 4848. And the null test is simple on Reaper. I have a phase button on each track. So if I flip the phase on one of the tracks, oops, let me do that so they don't flip them both. If I flip the phase on one of the tracks, that track is now 180 degrees out of phase to the other one, and it should null if they're completely identical. Okay? So for the purpose of this, I'm going to open up decibel, and I'm going to open up the correlometer. Actually, I'm going to close the correlometer first. We'll check that in a minute. Okay? I've got decibel open. So if I mute one of these tracks, okay, and I just hit play. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. You see your spectrum analysis, your VU meter, your output level, your stereo balance, stereo spectrum analysis is there, your LUFS, this is all on the screen, okay? So if I unmute it, it's going to get louder because you're summing two tracks together. Okay, so now it's louder. Okay? So when I flip the phase on one of those two tracks, and it doesn't matter which track I flip the phase on, anything identical is going to null itself out. Ready? Here we go. I'm going to flip the other one. All right, so as you can hear on that, they are not perfectly nulled out. So there are obvious differences between the two tracks. To my ear on the headphones, I'm hearing it mainly in the mids and highs. The spectrum analysis is showing, if I flip one of them again, the spectrum analysis is showing that it's pretty uniform across the whole thing. But if I unflip them and I mute one of them, you can see that there's more energy in the low end, as you would expect, and it tilts down as it goes to the higher, okay? That's the mix, okay? So when I flip the phase on them, what you're seeing now is that it's almost a flat line. So more low end is being nulled out than high end is being nulled out, okay? So the differences between those converters, it is across the whole spectrum, but it's nulling a little bit more of the low end than it is the high end. Also, for the sake of this discussion, if I undo that, mute one of them out, we're peaking volume-wise like minus 32 dB, minus 31 dB on the low end right there. I null that out. It's down at 76, so that's 40 dBs nulled out. Overall, the whole level, way down there. It's like minus 50. So, I mean, is it nulling? No. But it's very, very, very nulled out. You know, you're down close to the noise floor. So the differences between those two converters, not very much. And again, some of this can be attributed to differences that came from two different passes through a whole bunch of analog gear as well. So if you assign like 50% to the converter, 50% to differences, or less or more, however you want to do it in your own head, everything is perfectly valid. But again, let's take a look really quick at the correlometer. So as you can see, they're pretty well in phase across the spectrum. I knock it out of phase. There's no real phase issues now, because phase issues would go down below that line. Like if something was completely out of phase, it would be down in this area. So as you can, there's really no issues here at all. Let's stop Barry now. So, I mean, as you can see with this, there's not, just from like a strictly technical analysis of it, those converters are not doing a whole lot to the quality of the print track. Again, to sum all of this up, and let me just close these. So, I'll be, to sum all of this up, my own feeling is when I listen to those two tracks, there are differences. They're very slight, very, very slight differences. Not to the level that I would have expected, considering the quality level difference between the converters that are printing those tracks. I went into this whole thing with a preconceived expectation, which is a term I used yesterday with David too. I went into this with a preconceived expectation that there was going to be a major difference between the two. I was expecting an obvious difference when I auditioned the two tracks. I didn't hear it. My first impression was I don't hear anything at all. The longer I listened to it, the more I started hearing things. The differences that I was hearing were very slight in things like space on the reverbs, a little bit of difference in the high end, a little bit of difference in the low end. To me, like if I was going to try to quantify it, I felt like the AD plus is a little more scooped in the mid range than the 4848. But it was such a negligible difference that I just could not believe it. Actually, I mean, I was flabbergasted, and I still am. That like with the expectations that I had going into this, that the differences are so negligible between them that I just have nothing beyond that to say. The converter with the transformer on, there is an obvious intangible difference between the two of them. The converter is definitely having an effect on the track. But that's a converter. You're adding another converter to the piles. And I've always said that, when you run music through a mile of copper wire wrapped around an iron core, it's going to sound better. And does the AD plus with the converter sound better than the 4848? Yeah, in my estimation, it does. By a small degree. Not by a great degree. Not by any degree that I'm going to say is critical. So, like my own conclusion to this, completely independent of David's conclusion to this, is I'm taking that dangerous music converter, I'm putting it back in the box, and I'm sending it back to Sweetwater. Because I'm not getting enough of an advantage out of it to warrant the expense and the complication to my setup that it introduces. Everybody else's opinion is valid. And your conclusion is your conclusion. If you feel that would be necessary for you in your work case, in your use case, feel free, of course, to run your signals however you want to run them. It's not my studio. It's not my money. I do not have a horse in this race. I don't have a dog in this fight. It's David's money. It's his decision. Whatever he decides, I'm going to support 100%. If it was my studio, if I was sitting here in this studio and I was making that comparison, I would be sending that box back and using that $3,000 for something else. That's my own personal conclusion. So that's basically, I think, everything that I have to say about this one. Again, everybody else is going to make their own conclusion, and your conclusion is valid. Jump down in the comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think I'm completely wrong. Tell me if you think that we did the test wrong. Tell me how you think you would have done the test better. Tell me if you agree or disagree with the overall conclusions. Tell us what you used. Let's have a real discussion about this for, at this point in time. Be civil and realize that your opinion is your opinion. And everybody else's opinion is just as valid as yours because it's an opinion. Okay? My opinion is, having looked at this, that it's not worth it to me. Your opinion could be completely different. Feel free. Okay? But again, be civil. If you start slagging other people in the comments, your comments are going to be removed anyway, so don't bother. Just don't bother doing it. Okay? Because nobody's going to see it. So if you're going to go down there and you're going to take a giant crap on somebody, don't bother. They're not going to see it. So let it go. Okay? That's pretty much all I have to say about this. I'm not sure where David's going to land on this because, again, I'm recording this the morning after. He still has his own analysis to do again, and he has his own decision to make. So at this point in time, that's my conclusion. I will say, in the sake of full disclosure, I did enjoy much more doing an analysis like this previously when I did not know which track was which. Knowing which track was which on this analysis was like, okay, I mean, yes, there was a preconceived conclusion because I had already been through this once already over there. But we didn't put it on all the meters and stuff. So again, we didn't do a null test over there. So again, I thought it was important that we do that for the sake of total transparency with this, that everybody sees what we did. Okay. So I'm going to cut this off now. I think I've rambled on long enough. Hope if David has a conclusion to put to this video, I'm sure he'll tack it on. If he doesn't, let me just end this with you. As usual, we appreciate all the support we get from you guys on this channel. If you're not subscribed to this channel and you're watching these videos, if you're getting anything out of them at all, please subscribe. It helps us immensely to have, with the more subscribers we get, the more of these kinds of things we're going to be able to do for you. Okay. So please, like, join our community, get involved, get into the debate, be civil. Check us out on the live streams. Check out David's mixingmusicanalog.com. Check out mixingmadeeasy.com. Check out homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Check out the Home Recording Made Easy music channel. Join us in everything that we're trying to do here. We appreciate you. We appreciate Barry Dridger for letting us use his music. And I will see you guys again in another video. Thank you for watching. You all take care and goodbye.